This is really hard. It's hard on you. It's even harder on your family. I mean, your spouse, your kids, you don't see them very much. Painful. You're not making money while you're running for office.
We're waiting for Adrienne to arrive.
While you're running for office.
This is Keene's New
Hampshire. Criticized.
They're opening the
It is
new
much
office
easier to
now
criticize somebody
today.
for an idea. There are many more letters to the editor criticizing than there are praising. People have to really go out of their way to praise. And so you've got to have a really thick skin to run for higher office. And this is somebody who's never run for anything before. So there's a fearlessness to him that I find so appealing. It's a big part of what I love about him. And I also think it's what will make him a great president. Because if you're going to deal with really big problems, you're going to need to be willing to be really candid, and you're going to have to offer really big solutions. And you're going to have to be fearless in the process of doing that. It's just really easy to fall back on old things, but it's some of the old things that got us into the problems that we're in right now. Yes?
What's Andrew's stance on putting funding behind like a national community-based enrichment programs? Things like food, mental health, drug addiction, homelessness, programs that actually, heal some of the fractures that have happened in our country, but, beside the freedom dividend, because like, if we just let the capitalism we have go as it is, things are just gonna continue to get worse.
Well,
so what's his stance on funding those programs?
Well, look, there's a reason he's a lifelong Democrat, and at the risk of oversimplifying it, the headline of your question, the public sector, government at the local, the county, state, federal level can be a positive force for good. Now that sounds like a pretty uncontroversial statement, but again, I would argue as part of the Reagan Revolution. For much of the last 40 years, one of the two major parties basically has as dogma, as a central operating principle of its existence, that government is bad at any time, at any level, that is incapable of being helpful, it's incapable of making us fairer or freer. And if one of the two voices politically in the country start that way, that Overton window I described earlier about what we're allowed to talk about as a country has shifted dramatically to the right, and it still is in many ways. And so Andrew is somebody who believes that government can be a positive and powerful force for good. And so when we talk about how we pay, for example, for the freedom dividend, it's often an oversimplified form of it, the value-added tax. But there are other things too, like here's an example. He believes that we should eliminate the earnings cap on Social Security.
Yep.
Now, I don't know how many are familiar with that. Basically, it's adjusted a little every year. A little under $120,000 of your income a year are subject to the tax that goes towards funding Social Security. All right? But once you hit that number, I think it's about 118 grand this year, you no longer pay that portion of your taxes. And that means that the amount of Social Security tax that you pay if you make 118,000 or 118 million a year is the same. Here's the reality. Social Security is arguably the most successful program, federal program in the history of the country. It is successful in part because it has done what it was supposed to do, dramatically lower older age poverty. From the majority of older age Americans living in poverty before the program to roughly out of 7. Still too many, but a dramatic and durable success. But when Social Security was created, what? Anyway, thank you so much for being here.
You killed it, Steve.
One moment, okay. And this is where what I do is I wind up. And I thank you profusely, because you get to finally stop hearing me and start hearing the next president of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Andrew Yang.
Hello, Keene, New Hampshire. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to back out of your way a little bit.
Let's give Steve Marchand another round of applause. Steve's,
Hey guys, there you go.
Steve is a superhero here in New Hampshire. I know many of you know that. How many of you know that I went to high school here in the state?
Sneak out this way.
Yes, Phillips Exeter Academy, 1992. And being back in the state now, it's been like a homecoming. I insist to the team we only listen to Steve's music.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I'm reliving my adolescence.
JNR.
After I graduated from Exeter, I went to college in Rhode Island. Actually, let me stop there for a second. How many of you know a lot about me in the campaign? How many of you are just here checking it out because you saw some TV ad that we spent a lot of money on?
How about saw you at the debate, the last debate?
How about saw me at the debate or here for some other reason? Well, you still need to know more about Andrew Yang. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming out tonight. I'll give you my arc as to how I came to run for president, because certainly it was not the topic of conversation in the Yang household growing up. It wasn't like, oh, you're going to grow up to be president someday. That wasn't real. Parents were more like, keep your head down, get good grades. So I went to Exeter, I went to Brown University, I went to law school, became an unhappy lawyer for 5 whole months. Excuse me. Hot cocoa.
Some water, man? Like,
No, thanks. It was all the celebrating from last night.
It's all that champagne.
I don't know if you saw, we had someone serve as my stand-in.
Sam, he did well.
Sam, dude. He did so good.
Yeah.
Chance.
So I said anytime one to buy me a drink, just buy one for Sam.
Can I have my
Got a lot of drinks. Yeah.
Chance?
He did well.
Yeah, I heard. Did he get home safe all right?
Yeah, he's all good.
I'm glad.
Don't even trip.
So I left the law to start a business that did not work out. Had its mini rise and maximum fall. My parents told people I was still a lawyer. But I'd been bitten by the bug and tried again, and then became the head of an education company that grew to become number one in the United States and was bought by a bigger company in 2009. 2009 was a really tough time in a lot of the country. How many of you were here in New Hampshire 10 years ago? So you remember the financial crisis. How was the financial crisis here in the Keene area?
It was bad.
It was bad. You probably saw friends lose jobs. Some even might have lost their homes. And I thought I had some insight as to why the financial crisis had crashed the economy. It was because so many of the wannabe whiz kids I'd gone to Exeter and Brown and Columbia with had gone straight to Wall Street and created mortgage-backed securities and derivatives and these exotic financial instruments that produced, turns out, massive disasters for the rest of us. And so I thought that was an epic train wreck, and it made me very angry. The bailout of Wall Street made me very angry. You all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout?
Oh, no.
No, none of us voted for that. You know, and like if we hit hard times, what happens? Like, oh, our fault. It's like banks hit hard times, it's like, here's $4 trillion. And to me, one of the biggest missed opportunities of that was that we actually had a fundamental choice as a society at that moment, which was recapitalize the banks or keep people in their homes. And which do we choose? We chose the banks because we trust the banks more than we trust our people, apparently. So I had such a crisis of confidence in this. It was so shocking to me and disgusting. And I knew, again, some of the people involved. So I said, we have to try and create a better path for people that are going to do something productive and generative that starts a business. And so I quit my job at this point to start a nonprofit. How many of you all work in nonprofits? How many of you all volunteer for a nonprofit? You should just raise your hand to that one. I mean, that's like, are you a good person kind of question. It's like, sure. There was that one time. So this I give full credit to my wife, because I was a pretty normal guy before this. Then at this point I say, hey, I want to quit my job, start a nonprofit. And starting a nonprofit, I'll tell you how you do it, at least how I did it. So I took some of our savings, put it down to start this nonprofit, and then started calling wealthy friends with this question: do you love America? And the smart among them said, what does it mean if I say yes to this question? And I said, at least $10,000. So 12 of them said, I love America for $10,000. So you raise that money and then go around trying to help businesses grow in cities around the country. And over the next 7 years that I ran this nonprofit, we helped create about 3,000 new jobs. I was honored by the Obama administration multiple times. I got to bring my wife to meet the president. So my in-laws were very excited about me for about a week. And I'm like, oh, she did all right. Check this out, look at this picture. But I had this real sinking feeling during the 7 years, because I went to places and I felt like my work was like pouring water into a bathtub that had a giant hole ripped in the bottom. But things were getting worse, not better, in a lot of the country. But I was still stunned when Donald Trump became our president in 2016. How did you all respond that night?
Oh my God.
Despair, shock, grief, disbelief. Me too. I saw that, I said, okay, This is a giant red flag for our country. This is not business as usual. Tens of millions of our fellow Americans decided to take a bet on the narcissist reality TV star as our president. And though I was shocked, we all have family members and friends and neighbors who celebrated his victory. To me, again, you have to stop what you're doing, especially if you're, in my case, like this celebrated White House entrepreneur ambassador who goes around trying to make things better, and then, frankly, like a red flag goes up. It's like, well, it looks like what I've been doing for the last 6 years has not really been doing the trick. And if you were to turn on cable news networks, why would you think that Donald Trump won? Why would you think that he's our president today? Russia. Well, he was upset too. He said, that guy's our president, let's get him out of there by the time I can say president.
The Apprentice.
The Apprentice, yeah, he's very, very famous. He's been in our living rooms. The Electoral College.
Emails.
Racism perhaps. Hillary Clinton.
Outsider.
Businessman, outsider, yeah, all these things are mixed together. But I'm a numbers guy, and the numbers tell a very clear story. Where we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in this country over the last number of years. And where were those jobs based? Ohio, Michigan, Western Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, all the swing states that Donald Trump needed to win and did win. And if you doubt this, there's a straight line up between the adoption of industrial automation in a voting district and the movement in that district. It's one of the strongest correlations you can find in the voter data. And you all know this because this happened in New Hampshire a number of years earlier in the northern part of your state. You all lost more than 12,000 manufacturing jobs, and those towns never recovered. After the plant closed, the shopping district closed, the people started to leave, the schools started to shrink. I've been to those towns. You know, I'm campaigning for president. I don't stop at this part of New Hampshire, I just keep going up. So, what happened, New Hampshire then moved to the Midwest, swept away all these communities. I've been to those communities too. They have not recovered either. And what happened to those jobs is now shifting to other parts of the economy. How many of you noticed stores closing where you live here in New Hampshire? And why are those stores closing? Amazon. Amazon's soaking up $20 billion in business every year. How much did Amazon pay in taxes last year? Zero. That's your math, Keene. 20 billion out, zero
Wi-Fi
back.
is not very
30
good.
stores and malls closed forever.
Internet.
Most common job in
Not
your
good.
communities, retail clerk. And it's not just the retail jobs, it's the call center jobs, the fast food jobs. You go and you see the